Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we'll review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Shekalim, Daf Yud Daled through Daf Chaf, pages 14 through 20. Yud Daled. Rabbi Yossi al Kufar. Rabbi Yossi visited a certain town. Bo Manaya Alein Parnasim Melokibul Minhon. He wanted to appoint people to certain positions of civic responsibility, and they were rejecting the appointment. They didn't want to take the job. Al V'amar Kamehon. So to convince them to accept the job, he quoted the Mishnah. The Mishnah says Ben Bevai al Pakia, that Ben Bevai was responsible in the Beit HaMikdash in the temple for the Pakia, for the Ptilot, the wicks of the menorah. Not exactly the most prestigious of appointments, and yet, nonetheless, Ben Bevai is listed in the Mishnah together with the other temple administrators, so his prestige grows despite the relative unimportance of his position. So Rabbi Yossi tells the people, listen, if Ben Bevai achieved renown in the Mishnah just for being in charge of the Ptilot, the wicks, you are being appointed to matters of life and death, serious responsibility. All the more so will you be listed among the heroes. This was an inducement for them to take the job. Tetvav 15. Rabbi Chama Bar Chinana and Rabbi Oshia were walking around near the synagogue of Lod. And Rabbi Chama said to Rabbi Oshia, look over here. My ancestors put a lot of money into that synagogue, into that shul. He was proud of himself that his family had donated so much to the physical building of the synagogue. To which Rabbi Oshia responded, Kamanafashot shekukan, that in fact your ancestors did the wrong thing. What they should have done was they should have found Torah scholars who were in need of financial support, and they should have supported them, rather than squandering their money on the beautification of the house of prayer. Ted Zayin, 16. Mishenignaz Aaron, Nignazimo, Tzintzanat Haman, Utztolchit Shemen Hamishcha, Umaklosh Laron Prachavish Kedav, Vergaz Shoshiv, Plishtim Asham Lolokei Yisrael. That when the Ark of the Covenant was hidden away, and it's unclear when exactly that happened, although one of the opinions that appear in the Gemara is that it was Yoshiyahu, the king, one of the last of the kings of Yehuda, to put away the Aron, and he did so lest it fall into the hands of the enemy. Well, when the ark was put away in a secret chamber, not to be found again, what was also lost was the vial of manna from the days of the Midbar, when Moshe Rabbeinu put aside a certain small portion of the heavenly food which sustained our ancestors in the Midbar as a permanent memorial. So that man was kept in the ark. It was lost with the demise of the ark. Also was the Shemen HaMishcha, the anointing oil, which had been prepared at the inauguration of the Mishkan and was used for centuries to anoint kings and to anoint high priests. Maklosh al Aaron, the staff of Aaron, which had sprouted flowers and almonds. And also what was lost was the box that the Philistines, the Plishtim, had given to Bnei Yisrael when they returned the ark after the ark had temporarily been captured after the fall of Shiloh. Yud Zayin, 17. Leitkan shel kesef neshu martiach. So the Gemara wants to know, why is it that the showbread, the lechem hapanim, was placed on a certain table in the Beit HaMikdash? And that table was not made out of precious metal, out of silver or gold, but rather it was made out of marble. Now this was the table it was placed on temporarily before being officially placed on the formal shulchan of gold. But why was it made out of marble? So the Gemara says, because if it were to be made out of a precious metal, the bread would spoil. It would become too hot. As opposed to if it was on marble, cool marble, the bread would retain its freshness. But wait a second, don't miracles happen in the temple? The Gemara says we don't recall these miracles, which the Korban Eidah, the commentary explains, Ein somchen al hanes. We don't rely upon miracles, but rather we try our best by natural means, derech hateva, to prevent the spoilage of the showbread. Yudchet. The Mishnah says if a person promises to donate zahav, gold, to the temple, he cannot give less than 1 dinar's worth of gold. However, the Gemara explains that's only true kishehizkir tzura, when you mention that you're going to give a coin, but if you did not mention that you're going to give a coin, but rather just the precious metal in whatever form it takes, maybe you could even bring a small utensil like a fork, which is worth less than a dinar. Yutet. The Mishnah says that if a person finds money in Yerushalayim, It depends upon where you find it and what time of year you find it, which will determine whether that money has the status of chulin, non-sanctified money, or will it be Maser Sheni, a secondary tithe, which would be in abundance in Yerushalayim because people would bring their Maser Sheni money with them when they would go on pilgrimage. So let's find out where is where. If you find coins in front of the stalls where they sell animals, it is always, every day of the year, going to be assumed that that money was Maser Sheni. Bahar HaBayit Chulin. However, if you find money on Har HaBayit, where it might be from now, it might be from a day before, it might be from 6 months before, we shall assume that the money is Chulin. Yerushalayim. However, in the rest of the city, not on Har HaBayit, all year long, it's going to assume to be Chulin. However, B'shat HaRegel, on the pilgrimage festivals of Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, we will assume it is Maaser. Mishnah from Daf Chaf, page 20. The sages, the Beit Din established that salt and wood belonging to the temple may be used by Kohanim for their benefit. This is a little bit of a surprise because ordinarily people are not allowed to have personal benefit from hekdesh, from temple materials. However, they're not really having exclusively personal benefit. As the Korban Eidah explains, Dafka Achilat Korbanot, they can use the wood and the salt to facilitate the eating of sacrificial meat, to make the meat tastier and to roast it by burning the wood. That's okay. But to roast mundane meats, or for that matter, to salt and flavor mundane meats, that the Kohanim are not allowed to use the hekdesh, afilu, even when they're eating mundane meats for the sake of filling their stomachs so that they can eat the korbanot al hasova in a state of satiety. Because it was the tradition that the meat of korbanot should be eaten when you're relatively full. So that required eating non-sacrificial meat first. Well, for that non-sacrificial meat, the Kohanim were not allowed to use the melach and eitzim of the temple.